Good morning, it's Catherine from the Sugar Freedom channel. I do these rehearsals before I do my permanent videos to kind of get an idea of what I'm saying and how it flows, and also because when I go live it comes directly to you right away. It's a little high. Sorry about that. All right, so let's get going. The question is, how does inflammation influence appetite? On this channel, a gal about my age posted recently talking about willpower, and often when I hear somebody who's dealing with food talk about willpower, what they're trying to influence is their appetite. So let's talk about the difference between hunger and appetite. So hunger is that physiological demand that makes you want to eat, and appetite really tends to the function of appetite is helping you to choose what you eat. So hunger, the biological need. Appetite is still biological, but appetite deals with choice, the foods that you're choosing. So now we want to talk about how inflammation influences appetite, and I'll tell you why. I used to be obese. The reason I have this channel is because I overcame obesity 11 years ago, and I so much want to share the things that I did in order to lose 70 pounds and keep it off for now 11 years. And I want to get the message out that what I had to do is I had to eliminate the foods that were making me hungry, and that were stimulating my appetite. When I would eat sugar, grains, and processed vegetable oils, my appetite would go out of control. And when I eliminated them, my appetite returned to this normal function. And then when I went through menopause, because I'm 55 now, the cravings started to come back. And the solution to that was going carnivore, or what I call AB keto, animal-based keto. It was by even removing the vegetables that grow above the ground, which is what I tended to eat on keto, that when I took those out, my appetite normalized again. Thank you again. Oh, great. Thank you so much for at any rate, let's get on with this very important topic, because if you ask the right questions, you're going to find the right answers. So the right question is not so much like, how can I reduce my calories, or even how can I reduce my carbohydrates? But the question is that how can I manage my appetite? Well, I had to wonder, because my appetite problems started in childhood, and they started with inflammation. This is what I call the genesis of my obesity. It started with injury, inflammation, insulin resistance, and then obesity. So it all started with eczema when I was a little child. So the itching, the bleeding, the redness. Eczema is a symptom of inflammation. So if we get to the root cause, if we get to the inflammation, we can understand what's going on with the out of control appetite and also the fat storage. So here it is, my notes for today. How inflammation influences appetite. This is so important. All right, here we go. Insensitivity to a hormone that balances food intake with energy expenditure explains the contradictory effects of different inflammatory conditions on appetite. Let me explain. Acute inflammation, for example, when you get influenza, acute inflammation reduces appetite. Chronic inflammation increases it. Why in the world does this happen? And also, one of the reasons why it's important is that once you get to about 30 pounds of fat over a healthy weight, this is when your fat stores become inflammatory. They start to produce inflammatory cytokines, which are going to influence your fat storage and also influence your appetite. But what's going on there? All right, so acute inflammation, like when you have the flu, is going to reduce your appetite due to action on a protein called STAT3 and POMC neurons. I know, it's very, very technical, but let's talk about the study. In their recent study, and this was, I'll tell you later who did the study. Well-fed animals of normal body weight, Hahn and his co-workers found that acute inflammation, such as that caused by a viral infection, suppressed the translocation of STAT3, but more than compensated for the slight reduction in POMC transcription by causing a protein called RELA to migrate to the nucleus. The nuclear RELA elevated the rate of POMC transcription to above the normal level. This is consistent with the loss of appetite associated with most illnesses. So what I'm trying to describe here is this understanding that appetite is hormonal, that there are hormonal triggers that tell us to eat more or eat less. And of course, the hormones that manage that are leptin and ghrelin, glucagon, insulin. These are all involved. But the thing is that the chemical motivation to eat, overeat, or to not eat, these chemical motivations are controlled by leptin, ghrelin, and they're expressed through RELA, POMC, and STAT3. But what's important to you and I in terms of people who are trying to be healthy, overcome obesity, what's important to us is understanding that our behavior can affect this, and that the trigger for our behavior is inflammation itself. So if you and I can recognize that we're having an inflammatory response, we can make choices that are going to mitigate that inflammatory response. And for me, and that's why I've been doing carnivore. Okay, so we went from reducing sugar to sugar freedom, to taking out the grains and the vegetable oils, to finally going ketogenic, and then going AB keto, animal-based keto, or carnivore, in order to continue to reduce chronic inflammation. So if you experience not just being overweight and having excess appetite, but other symptoms, redness in your skin. I actually ate some more carbohydrates over Thanksgiving and ended up with acne. Acne is inflammatory. So if you experience the symptoms, mood, inflammation blocks the expression of dopamine, the feel-good hormone. So if your mood is dropping, these are other indications that you've got to get a handle on inflammation. And one of the ways that I get a handle on inflammation is by eliminating sugar, grains, and vegetable oils. Also, drinking that freedom tonic, which of course is apple cider vinegar, organic, lemon juice, and turmeric, because all of these are anti-inflammatory. And very soon I will be doing a video on why is the combination of vinegar, lemon juice, and turmeric, why is it inflammatory? Because people want some evidence before they go and, spend money on vinegar or drink this drink that isn't necessarily their favorite flavor. It's very important to have this evidence. So as we get back to this rehearsal, oh my goodness, it all comes down to leptin resistance. Can I tell you a story about leptin? So back after I overcame obesity, and in order to do that, I had to change the way I exercise. So I completely replaced cardio with weightlifting and high intensity interval training. So that was number one, because the cardio for me, chronic cardio, was raising my chronic inflammation. Some people respond to cardio very well. I respond to it by becoming miserable and inflamed. So I had to replace it with weightlifting, interval training, and also go back to dancing, because dancing I love. And I'm not talking about bar class or Zumba where we take dance and we turn it into cardio. No, that's not what I'm doing. I'm doing actual dance where I'm learning steps to wonderful music, putting them together, and making an artistic creation. One of my biggest frustrations with modern exercise is that we're taking what should be enjoyable and fulfilling, and we're turning it into simply a process for burning calories. And it backfires, because this process of going into chronic calorie burning and restriction actually raises the hormones that drive us to overeat. It's just consequences. Our actions have consequences. So instead, what we want to do is we want to pick foods and movements that are going to reduce inflammation, increase enjoyment without overstimulating appetite. And so this is why the sugar freedom, AB keto, and carnivore, these are my methods for doing exactly that. Leptin. Oh my goodness. So back when leptin was discovered, everybody thought it was going to be a miracle, because what we noticed is that as we eat more and as we create more body fat, it releases leptin, which tells us to stop eating. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be a miracle. We're going to develop a drug which is going to increase leptin. Everybody's going to stop overeating and it's going to be a miracle. We're going to make billions of dollars and everyone's going to be happy. But that's not the way it worked out. What happened is that trying to do protocols that raised leptin ended up causing leptin resistance. So too much leptin causes resistance to leptin, which then leaves us worse off than we were before. I remember back when I wrote Sugar Freedom, I was in a mastermind group, and one of the other members of the group, who had never been overweight, let alone obese, was using this concept, this theory that if we increased leptin periodically, that we would continue to achieve fat loss. And so what he suggested was that every 4 days we should go ahead and eat, plenty of foods containing glucose, even overeat. And the idea was that was going to raise leptin and that was going to help us keep losing fat. But the reality was, sure, it raised leptin, but it also increased and exacerbated leptin resistance, which, if you're obese, or even if you've been overweight for a long time, you respond to leptin differently than somebody who's never been overweight. The thing is, one of the things that I like to say is, quote, I'm not normal. That's why I can help. So often when we go into nutrition and fitness programs, we're working with people who have never had a weight problem. And so they respond to cardio and they respond to carbohydrates normally. A little bit more cardio, a little bit fewer calories, and they lose weight because they are normal. They have normal insulin sensitivity, normal leptin sensitivity, normal ghrelin, normal dopamine, normal serotonin. And so these things work for them, and yay for them, and that's fantastic. If you've never been more than maybe 10 pounds over your ideal weight, you can probably follow programs like that and have success. But if you've been obese like me, if you've been dealing with chronic inflammation ever since you were a kid, and here it was, I went through eczema, periodontal disease, overweight and obesity, depression, acne, easily broken bones, all of these things are connected with insulin resistance. So what we want to do is normalize our insulin response, normalize our leptin response. So this article, you can Google this and you'll see this article, How Inflammation Influences Appetite. Just Google that and you get to read this whole thing. Just vital that you'll understand what's going on. And then what do we do? So once we realize that inflammation is influencing our appetites, that's the point at which we say, okay, what am I going to do about my inflammation? And my choice, and remember, I don't advocate for carnivore, I demonstrate carnivore. I am not, okay, I got a nutrition certification years ago, but that certification required me only to promote the guidelines that were put out by the government. This had not been effective for me, so that's not what I'm going to promote. So I never renewed that nutrition certification. I'm like, no, I'm just going to leave it behind, and I'm just going to tell you how it is for somebody like me, an individual who's overcome obesity. So instead of advocating for carnivore or advocating for keto, I'm demonstrating keto and I'm demonstrating carnivore, demonstrating my personal experience. And what I would say is that if you're dealing with inflammation and obesity, get thee to a medical doctor. And there are a number of them out there now who are starting to understand what's going on with obese people. Find yourself, ideally, like a doctor like Dr. Tro, who's actually overcome obesity himself. Now that would be the gold standard, finding a medical doctor who was formerly obese, who has managed his inflammation and his appetite in such a way that he can be normal and healthy. And that's somebody like Dr. Tro. And of course, somebody like me, just a regular person who actually just wants to act, sing, and dance, who had to get lean and healthy, improve my mood and my motivation so that I could make something of my life. Don't want to waste my life. I'm 55. I don't want to run around being depressed and not doing the things that I love because I'm eating the wrong foods. So there it is. Boy, oh boy, thank you so much for tuning in. This was really helpful for me. So this is the live broadcast, and then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to videotape it, cut it, and do a better job of explaining how inflammation influences appetite. Thank you so much for bearing with me. Take good care. Find a way of eating and exercising that works for you, that makes you happy, that increases your motivation, and come back and check out the video when I've got it clean and cut. And then at that point, you can share it with your friends who may also be struggling with inflammation and all of its consequences. Thank you, everyone. Take good care, and I'll see you back here very soon on the Sugar Freedom channel. And check out other videos. I've got more videos. Check out the videos about the tonic, videos about exercise, learning how you can manage your inflammation so that you can lose all the weight you want and keep it off for good. All right. Thanks, everybody, and bye-bye.